we have this internal guiding system that we have stopped listening to. And I think what has happened is in those moments where we feel guilty or like we're not enough or that we're not doing it right, we actually, our internal guide is like, it's not the time. So from this information, I think it can help empower us to be like, oh, I'm not just feeling that way because I'm not enough. I'm feeling that way because actually my body doesn't align with this right now.
I think that's one of the most toxic things about the biohacking space currently is like, I think things are changing, particularly for women in the space, but there is an undercurrent in that space of like, oh, well, if you're not doing it, like you're just not like badass enough.
Right.
You're just not trying hard enough. Like you're just too soft. And it's like a very toxic energy that I'm just like not into anymore. So I think first understanding that biohacking, like it doesn't have to be this harsh, aggressive, like, oh, I'm changing my body's hardware, software system. It's more like gardening. Like, no, I'm really fostering how well my body can work and flourish. So like for me, that's usually the metaphor I use because I just think that's just more apt and more appropriate. Like these different tools that I'm using. Oh, well, I might need this to grow like these flowers a little bit more, and these need a certain amount of sunlight, and these need that sort of thing. I think is just a different way to look at it.
This is really essentially a roadmap. And if you want to take notes, this is a great time to pause, grab something, take notes, and just simply understand that most likely this is actually your internal guide. Like, this is probably how you feel at this phase. You just haven't listened yet. And so, what my goal is with this part of this episode is to bridge that gap between our internal guide that we have stopped listening to and what's going on physiologically and start to sync them up and start to empower these women that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not enough. This is just a phase, right? Every phase, the highs and the lows of our cycle are going to switch and change. And to start tuning back into that inner guide. Because what I've done with this information personally and what I want for these women is I have taken it and kind of mapped out my cycle. And now I just know I don't have to look at it anymore. I actually, it's like, this is exactly how we feel. Like if we just check in, do I want a cold plunge today? Not really. Maybe I want to stick my face in the cold, but that's about it. Well, you're probably in that phase. So let's
Yeah.
start. First phase of the cycle. Talk to me about what's happening from a hormonal aspect. Let's touch on maybe like social calendar or work commitments, biohacks, and then if there is a place for, microdosing some plant medicines in some phases more than others, as far as let's touch on that too.
And I'll just do a quick disclaimer before we jump into this. If you're new to learning about these things, don't feel overwhelmed. It's like learning any new skill. Like sometimes you just need to practice it for a couple of cycles. And then, like Melissa said, it's going to just become second nature. And you're going to be like, how did I never not know this? But initially, it will feel new. And anytime we change our routines and do something new, there can be a little bit of internal resistance. But I promise on the other side is like, a much easier life, so much easier life.
Yeah.
So we'll start with follicular phase. And follicular phase is really like the front half of our cycle. It overlaps a little bit with our bleeding week, but usually women know when they've started to hit it. It's like somewhere around day 3 or day 4. Like if day 1 is the day you start bleeding, somewhere around day 3 or 4, you're like, I feel amazing again.
Mhm.
Okay, yay. We're in follicular phase and we're going to be here for right up until we ovulate. So generally, 10 to 14 days, depending on cycle length, maybe a little longer. Most women feel really good in this phase. This is the phase when hormone production ramps up. We make a lot of estrogen, which is kind of like the star of the show right now. We tend to feel really good. We tend to feel really good socially. We tend to feel really good mentally. We tend to feel really good physically. Estrogen gets a bad rep, but it does a lot of things in the body, and we generally feel really good when it's hanging around. This is a great time to like push ourselves in workouts. We tend to be more insulin sensitive in this phase, so our metabolism tends to stay a little more balanced. We actually are naturally a little more resilient here as well. We handle stress better. We tend to be it's very easy for us to kind of stay regulated in this phase for the most part, compared to later. In terms of what's happening, we had this great conversation earlier about how estrogen can flood the brain and bind to different receptors. So we have to think about, what were some of those tasks we talked about? In my follicular phase, I'm really good at leadership skills, at executive function, at directing others, at doing big picture planning, at doing creative work. Like women in their follicular phase are very natural leaders for a reason. So it's a good time to do team meetings, good time, and that could be in your household too. Like bring the whole crew together, talk about what's happening.
Delegating the chores, family meeting at the table. I need your help, guys. Here's what I
Exactly.
need you all to do. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And we tend to feel more social too. So it is a great time for social events. A lot of my clients who are doing like speaking and podcasting, I'm always like, schedule it in this phase. You're going to feel good. I promise. So we tend to feel really, really good. When we look at biohacks, then, okay, what do we know about this phase? We're more resilient. We can handle stress better. Okay, this is the time to push myself with my biohacks. Maybe I'll do the longer sauna. Maybe I'll do the cold plunge. Maybe I'm going to play around with some fasting. If I want to do a longer fast, I'm going to do it in this phase. Like I'm going to push myself a little bit, take advantage of my ability to weather stress, and I'm going to build up that resilience, right? Build up that resiliency bank. It can be a fun time to push yourself a little bit more and you can handle it and reap the benefits of it, which I think is huge.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of plant medicine, we were talking before we hopped on here. I'm most familiar with like psilocybin microdosing. And it's the same concept, right? Like, okay, I want to do things that enhance my creativity at a time when I'm already primed to do that. So would it not make sense that this would be a good time to do that? I'm already wired to be a little bit more creative. Like, let me push myself a little bit more and see what else can happen, see what else I can come up with.
Mm-hmm. Any other things as far as what we're putting in the body, separate from biohacks, but like drinks, caffeine or alcohol? Is this a time to be wary of those? Obviously,
Yeah.
alcohol has a negative impact in the brain. I think we all know that. And, if there is a time when a woman's going to have a glass of wine here and there, is this that time? Any other supplements that come to mind to help support the woman's body?
Yeah. So again, we're thinking about what's happening during this time, right? Like body getting flooded with estrogen. We tend to have more estrogen. So for better or worse, like alcohol use also can increase like estrogen recirculation in the body. So especially if you're someone who's prone to estrogen dominance or like symptoms of excess estrogen, alcohol probably shouldn't have a place at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Really, like I don't want to say like this is the phase to like go throw one back because there's always risks.
Right.
Can you probably handle it a little better from a stress perspective? Sure, but it's going to put a strain on the liver, which right now we need to be working well to metabolize all that estrogen and hormones that we're putting out. So even when we look at like supplements, those sorts of things, okay, can we add in things that are supporting the liver to make sure we're metabolizing this estrogen that we're producing? Maybe in the diet, we're making sure we do things like ground flax seeds, things like that to help with that. Things like that just overall help with we have more hormones right now. How do we break them down? I know people do have a lot of like cycle sync blends out there that you can look at, but my mind, if someone's in the follicular phase, is she's working pretty well right now. So if we're doing supplements other than the basics, I just want to make sure she's doing things that help her metabolize and eliminate that excess estrogen, make sure she's going to the bathroom regularly, maybe a little magnesium at night, those sorts of things. Super simple that way.
Yeah, I'm gonna put some of my favorite liver supports down below because I've got like a milk thistle I take. I kind of take it all throughout the month, but this is a good time. There's castor oil packs for liver. Those are incredible at night. Charcoal at night before bed, I feel like just also kind of helps keep things clean and moving. And then magnesium. So we'll link those all below. If you like that, you'll enjoy the full version and you can get that simply by clicking here. Be sure to also subscribe so you don't miss any future content.